Hello, this is the Azande lecture part 2, and here's to getting better the second time around. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so hopefully by now I've cleaned up the first part, and I just want to talk about the system that you've heard. I've asked you to do an assignment where you offer a critique or suggest the weaknesses in the Azande system, and I think they're pretty clear. But I want to start with the idea that the system it's beautiful. It's beautiful in Fred's hands. Fred doesn't have a physical memory of having slept with Bob's wife, but he pays the chickens and the goats. He wishes that he hadn't done that. He wonders who might have sent the ghost or the witch that made him do that. Again, when Evans Pritchard asks him, how is it you could have had sex with Bob's wife and not remember, he says, well, somebody sent a ghost or a witch to me at night in a dream, and I was taken over there. What I think is beautiful about it is something that an old professor of mine, by the name of Mel Paulner, used to talk about as the incorrigibility of mundane reason. For our purposes, what that really means is that it's very hard to break this system. There is no proof that Fred or any other member of the Azande would accept that their system did anything but reveal what had actually happened. If the oracle says he did it, and Fred says, I don't remember it, and they show him the chickens, well, the oracle speaks through the life and death of the chickens. And if it's a question about whether or not God is wrong or Fred is wrong, a question about whether the system is wrong or Fred is wrong, Fred knows Fred is wrong. So any problems that you might have there are cast aside. I remember asking my mom when I was young, because I was somewhat of a son of a bitch even at a young age. I asked her, well, if you're such a good Christian and God loves you, why is it your husbands keep dying? Why is it you can't keep the electricity on? And why is it that your car is falling apart? And she would wave her hand and look at me and say, it's God's plan. And we don't question God's plan. With that wave of the hand, any contradictions I could find in her position were simply waved away. And there was nothing I was going to say, no matter how much I read, no matter how damn right and logical I truly was, that was ever going to convince her of anything different. At a certain point, she would just look at me and say, you have read yourself stupid with those books. Well, whoever side you come upon, the idea is this. The system is incorrigible. It's unbreakable. And because of that, they know. Okay, so it's beautiful. It's incorrigible. There's no way to get around it. Given all of that, we still have to make it a little bit uglier. And the way you do that in the social sciences is that you analyze it. So let's begin to start to poke some holes in it. I take it that the major criticism that most listeners will come up with is that the binga is poisoning the chickens. And so I need to sort of look at that from a few different angles. Let me start off with some of the things that Evans Pritchard brought up. Sometimes a big chicken, or slightly bigger chicken, would be given a slightly smaller piece of binga and die. And sometimes a somewhat larger, smaller chicken would be given a larger dose and die. He looked at a number of these rituals, ceremonies, And it seemed to him that the pieces of bingo were pretty much uniform, which isn't surprising given that the same person was doing this in almost all the instances. The chickens were pretty much the same size. The chickens were usually from the same person at the same session, and so their diet, feeding habits were fairly similar. They cohabitated quite a lot. For the most part, there did not seem to be a correlation between the size of the bingo, the size of the chicken, and the final result. Okay. If bingo is poison, then why didn't all the chickens die? So that if you come up with the criticism that the bingo is poison, you have to explain the fact that it's only poison sometimes. And what I want to do is give you one or two more examples of how this sort of thing works. But I'll wait till the next session. I want to offer you two examples of this sort of sometimes thing. One is Tupac Shakur. For those of you who are acquainted with him, you may know this story much better than I do. I'll try and get as much of it right as I can. As I understand it, what killed Tupac Shakur were 5 bullets in his upper body. He was shot in the passenger's seat of a car going down one of the boulevards in Las Vegas. So the 5 bullets killed him. But it wasn't the first time he had been shot with 5 bullets in the upper body, in the passenger seat of a car, on a boulevard in Las Vegas. It had happened to him once before in his life, and he had survived. So when you come up with something like this, then the problem is this. Sometimes 5 bullets kills you, but sometimes it doesn't. So to have said that 5 bullets killed you, why this time and not the other time? Because effectively that's the same situation you get into with the Azande and the bingo being poison. Well, if it's really poison, then why doesn't it poison every time? Let me give you a second case. There was a guy, I think it was 1986, a basketball player named Len Bias out of Maryland. One of the best college basketball players I ever saw, and I saw Michael Jordan. He was drafted by the Celtics, I think number 3, same position as Jordan, and he was going to save that team, except that a few days after the draft, I believe, by all accounts, he snorted 2 lines of cocaine and died. I believe the coroner's report says he died of cocaine intoxication. Here's my problem with that. I've got friends that have snorted up half of Peru still walking around. Why would 2 lines have killed him, but other people, have this sort of, have ingested amazing amounts of cocaine and not died? Now, one way we go and sort of defend ourselves in that instance is we say, well, some people have a greater tolerance to cocaine than other people. And perhaps you might argue that some of the chickens have a greater tolerance to bingo than other chickens. Okay. But now being scientists, and we don't want to be people who believe in magic like the Azande, we don't want to go around killing chickens to find out what's going on. And by the way, my position is sticking things in chickens' throats is not going to tell you a whole lot of things, except maybe perhaps about chickens and what they can handle eating. And I know I'm supposed to respect other traditions and cultures and things like that, but the truth is I don't buy the whole chicken thing. I wouldn't want my life decided upon it, but so I'm looking for something better, and I assume most of us think our system, whatever its faults, is better. So where is your cocaine tolerance located? Where in your body would such a thing be exactly? How could the coroner tell that Len Bias had a cocaine intolerance? Well, he looked down at the floor and he saw this dead guy, and everybody said he had done some coke. And it was like, ooh, well, that must have been it. But that's an awfully odd way of coming to a